Frankfurt dazzles the world with its gleaming skyscrapers and towering financial empires. But take just a few steps away from the stock exchange, and you'll find yourself face to face with a completely different reality. One they don't put in the glossy brochures. We enter streets hidden from tourist maps, where neon lights don't shine over trendy bars, but instead reflect off discarded needles glinting under flickering lamps, where the air is thick with the stench of urine, sweat, and cheap alcohol. Locals have given this place a haunting nickname, Crackfurt, a chilling fusion of Frankfurt's name and the crack epidemic devouring its core. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. This isn't the proud financial capital of Europe you've seen in headlines. This is a living nightmare, a descent from wealth into chaos, from boardrooms to trembling figures curled on the cold pavement. This is the face of Frankfurt they'd rather you ignore. But we won't look away. Join us here at Secret Journeys as we pull back the curtain on the city's underworld, where addiction, survival, and silence rule the streets. Welcome to the zombie district of Frankfurt. Just a few blocks from luxury shopping avenues and the glittering glass towers of Europe's richest economy lies a neighborhood that feels like a portal to another world, or another century. Welcome to the Bahnhofsviertel, the infamous area surrounding Frankfurt's central train station. Here, the shine of Germany's economic powerhouse fades into something far darker. Something many locals describe as a real-life land of zombies. It's not just a metaphor, it's a name worn painfully, Crackfurt. A nickname that isn't street slang, but a brutal truth stamped on the streets themselves. Every day, hundreds drift through this district like lost souls. Their steps are slow, their eyes vacant, their bodies bruised and trembling. Many are deeply gripped by addiction, to heroin, to crack, to whatever numbs the pain. According to city health officials, over 3,300 individuals in Frankfurt are considered active drug users, and the majority are concentrated right here, in this small, battered pocket of the city. In just 1 year, city-run safe consumption rooms reported over 135,000 uses of crack. And that's just inside the clinics. Step outside, and you'll witness something that's almost unimaginable in Western Europe: the public injection of hard drugs, happening in broad daylight. In plain view, on park benches in alleyways, even next to tram stops. Users hunch over, tying off their veins, indifferent or unable to care that children or tourists might be watching. And it doesn't stop there. Drug deals happen openly, sometimes just meters from uniformed police officers. Dealers lean casually against brick walls, hands buried deep in pockets, scanning the street with the quiet confidence of men who know they won't be stopped. Yes, the police are here, but they rarely step in. It's not unusual to see officers strolling past an active drug sale without even a glance. Locals call it law theater. They arrest someone today, and tomorrow, that same person is back on the corner, dealing again. In this part of Frankfurt, the law doesn't feel absent. It feels irrelevant. But the collapse doesn't end with drugs. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. Germany legalized prostitution in 2002, hoping to bring safety and regulation to the industry. Yet here, on these streets, that safety never arrived. But here, in Bahnhofsviertel, Frankfurt's so-called red light district doesn't resemble the regulated, protected industry envisioned by policymakers. Instead, it feels more like a marketplace of desperation. Women stand beneath flickering neon signs, clad in lingerie under worn jackets, calling out to passing cars and pedestrians. Their voices are soft, yet urgent. Some lean in doorways, some pace along the curbs. Above them, the neon lights flash promises of special services, glowing like false beacons in the night. Some brothels look straight out of a dystopian film. Windows blacked out, metal doors bolted shut, security cameras scanning every corner. These aren't places of empowerment. They're fortresses of survival and sometimes of entrapment. Officially, Germany records around 28,000 registered sex workers. But experts believe the real number is much higher, possibly double, especially in cities like Frankfurt, where many work in the shadows, unregistered, unseen, unprotected. And here, in Bahnhofsviertel, the line between sex work and human trafficking becomes dangerously blurred. Addiction and exploitation feed into each other, locking women into a cruel cycle. Some sell their bodies to afford their next hit. Others are trapped by debts, controlled by pimps or criminal networks who keep the chains tight. Not with iron, but with dependence, with manipulation, with threats whispered in the dark. Different faces, same tragedy. And behind every face is a story of a life unraveling. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. Crime statistics paint an even darker picture. In just the first half of 2024, over 1,090 crimes were officially recorded at Frankfurt's main train station alone, an average of 6 reported incidents per day. Those numbers include pickpocketing, street fights, drug-related violence, and assaults. And those are just the reported cases. Locals say the real numbers are likely much higher, because so many incidents go unreported, unseen, or quietly ignored. The atmosphere here is thick, heavy. It's like the very air carries the exhaustion of a city stretched beyond its limits. The stench of urine lingers in doorways. Trash skitters across sidewalks. The flashing lights of kebab stands and adult video shops offer no warmth, no welcome. Conversations happen in whispers. People keep their heads down. And yet, just steps away, the world's financial elite are sipping espresso in glass towers, negotiating billion-dollar deals. On one end of the block, a consultant in a designer suit. On the other, a man collapsed against a brick wall, syringe still clutched in his hand. This isn't just poverty. This is a complete collapse of the social infrastructure, playing out in one of Germany's most visible, most strategic urban centers. And it leaves us with a chilling question. How did it come to this? That's what we'll uncover in the next chapter of this story. But for now, let this image sink in. This isn't a war zone. This isn't a failed state. This is Frankfurt, Germany, in the year 2025. Today, she sells her body beneath the cold glow of the red light district, trading moments of intimacy for scraps of cash, barely enough to feed the crack addiction that took root after her daughter's death. "I never planned this," she murmurs, her voice hollow, eyes fixed on the flickering neon of a nearby brothel. But after losing her child, she says, nothing else mattered anymore. Her story isn't unique here. It echoes through these streets, repeated in different faces, different names, but the same quiet tragedy. Just a block away, there's Jürgen. Before the pandemic, he worked steady shifts at a construction company. But when the lockdowns hit, his job disappeared overnight. With no savings left, the rent followed. The next domino fell fast. Homelessness. He tried the shelters. Frankfurt offers 7 nights of emergency beds. After that, you're on your own. Now, he sleeps under scaffolding, not far from a glittering bank headquarters, a building he once helped construct. Every night, he gazes up at its lights, remembering the days he was inside, not beneath. He's tried to climb out. The soup kitchens help. The shelters, too, for that brief week. But the rehab centers? The waiting list stretches 3 months, sometimes longer. By the time they call your name, he shrugs, you either don't need it anymore, or you're not around to answer. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. Then there's Isa. She's just over 20, a migrant who arrived in Germany chasing hope. But the language barriers, the closed doors, the invisible walls of exclusion, they stacked up fast. A friend offered pills to soothe the gnawing anxiety. Then the pills turned to heroin. Now, Isa doesn't remember the last time she slept indoors. Her days blur in alleys, her nights stretched across park benches. These aren't individual failures. They're symptoms of a system stretched too thin, too slow, and in some places, too absent. Frankfurt, like many major German cities, is facing a widening fracture, a growing gap between the promises of social safety nets and the brutal realities on the ground. Access to stable housing? Limited. Mental health support? Scarce. Addiction treatment? Overcrowded, with waiting lists that stretch into hopelessness. Without a home base, even those who try to seek help often fall between the cracks. No place to return to between sessions, no foundation to rebuild from. And in this fragile ecosystem, prostitution, though legal in Germany, adds yet another tangled layer. In theory, legalized sex work provides protection, oversight, health services. But here, in Bahnhofsviertel, the theory doesn't reach the alleys. Here, regulation dissolves into shadows. Supervision fades behind unmarked doors, inside nameless buildings where women work unregistered, unseen, uninsured. Every system that's meant to protect? It frays at the edges here. And the cycle tightens. Addiction feeds homelessness. Homelessness feeds desperation. Desperation feeds exploitation. Exploitation feeds back into addiction. A loop without an exit. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. And once again, the police presence feels more symbolic than effective. Officers patrol. They see the public drug use, the solicitation. Sometimes they intervene, but the intervention feels more like a pause than a solution. They'll arrest someone, locals say, and a few hours later? Same face, same corner, same story. Even some officers admit it, it feels like trying to sweep the ocean with a broom. In a place like this, it's tempting to look for villains. To blame the users, the dealers, the system, the laws. But the truth? The lines blur here. Blame gets swallowed by complexity, by histories, by policies, by silences. And beneath every statistic, there's a life. A person. A story that wasn't meant to end like this. So as we walk deeper into Frankfurt's unseen corners, ask yourself, how does a city so rich let so many fall so far? And what happens when the safety net becomes a web with holes too big to catch them? We'll explore that, and more, in the next chapter. But for now, let this question linger. When survival itself becomes a gamble, what choices are left? But these aren't just numbers. They're people. People with lives, with stories. People who once had steady jobs, families, dreams. What they share isn't failure. It's abandonment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. When a society looks away long enough, suffering becomes invisible. Pain becomes part of the background, just another crack in the pavement. And while a handful of non-profit organizations step in, offering food, blankets, and basic medical care, the scale of the crisis dwarfs their reach. They're fighting a flood with teaspoons. Brave, tireless, deeply committed, but painfully aware that their efforts are never enough. Frankfurt hasn't forgotten how to grow. You can see that in the glittering skyline. But maybe, just maybe, it's forgetting who it's leaving behind. Maria, Jürgen, I say, they aren't metaphors. They're not cautionary tales. They're human beings. Human beings who just needed someone to say, "We see you. We'll help you." And for years, no one did. This isn't just a story about poverty or addiction. It's a story about visibility, about dignity, about the quiet violence of being ignored. Because until these people are seen, truly seen, Frankfurt's identity as a global powerhouse will always stand on fractured ground. And that leads us to a bigger question. Why is Frankfurt crumbling beneath its own success? Frankfurt wasn't always like this. Once hailed as a post-war miracle, a phoenix rising from the ashes of destruction, it transformed into one of Europe's most powerful financial hubs. But today, it faces a very different crisis. One that can't be fixed with money. One no skyscraper can solve. The truth? Frankfurt's unraveling didn't happen overnight. It was a slow erosion, laid brick by brick, over decades. Urban planning decisions, economic inequality, policy failures, and the biggest mistake of all, forgetting to include the very people who helped build the dream. Let's break it down. In the second half of the 20th century, Frankfurt's growth exploded. Banks, tech giants, multinational corporations poured in. Along with them came the towers of glass and steel, the luxury condos, the corporate headquarters. But with every new building, something else happened. The people who once lived and worked in these neighborhoods started getting pushed out. Property values soared. Rents skyrocketed. By the early 2020s, residents were spending over 40% of their monthly income just to keep a roof over their heads, far beyond the threshold for affordable living. This process, gentrification, displaced thousands of working-class families from the city's center. Many ended up squeezed into or around Bahnhofsviertel, the neighborhood surrounding Frankfurt's central train station, a neighborhood that would later become the epicenter of the city's social collapse. And as this urban shift unfolded, something even more dangerous took root: a widening economic chasm. One side of Frankfurt became a playground for the ultra-wealthy. The other side descended into neglect. Today, the city holds two realities: one of privilege, access, and upward mobility, and one of poverty, addiction, and survival. Let's talk about drug policy. Back in the 1990s, Frankfurt was seen as a pioneer, a progressive beacon. The city introduced harm reduction strategies, clean needle exchanges, supervised drug consumption rooms. The idea? To reduce overdose deaths, to slow the spread of disease, to treat drug use as a public health issue rather than a criminal one. It was a noble experiment, and for a while, it worked. But somewhere along the way, the system got overwhelmed. By 2025, Frankfurt's 4 supervised consumption rooms were reporting over 135,000 instances of crack use per year. And outside those walls? It's every person for themselves. People injecting in alleyways, on park benches, next to children's playgrounds. And the drug trade? It happens in plain sight. Dealers leaning casually against walls, hands in pockets, scanning the street with the calm confidence of men who know they won't be stopped. Yes, the police are there. Yes, they patrol. But they rarely intervene. The law isn't absent here. It feels irrelevant. Even police officers admit their limits. "We're trying to sweep the ocean with a broom," one confessed in an interview. The harm reduction approach meant to save lives? Somewhere along the line, it became a de facto green light. Instead of preventing harm, it's created zones of unchecked decay, pockets of lawlessness where crime goes unpunished and social collapse spreads like wildfire. And the price? It's not measured in arrests. It's measured in lost lives, forgotten futures, silent suffering. So here's the uncomfortable truth. How do you balance compassion with control? How do you protect lives without enabling destruction? And how many people have to fall before the system admits it's broken? That's the question we'll explore in the next chapter of this journey. But for now, pause. Look again at Frankfurt. Not the skyline. Not the brochures. The shadows in between. Because behind every neon light, behind every polished glass tower, there's a story no one wanted to tell. And it's time someone finally listened. Numbers alone can't tell the full story. Every statistic hides a human face. A child growing up surrounded by used syringes on the sidewalk. A resident who no longer feels safe walking their own neighborhood. People desperate for help, waiting months, sometimes years, for a spot in a rehab center that may never come. In 2015, as Europe faced its largest refugee influx since World War II, Germany opened its doors. It was hailed as a moment of moral leadership, a beacon of hope. And for many who arrived, it was nothing short of a lifeline. Frankfurt, as an international hub, absorbed a significant share of this wave. But while the welcome mat was rolled out, the blueprint for integration was missing. Fast forward to 2024. Nearly half of all welfare recipients in Germany seeking employment are foreign-born. Many of the newcomers to Frankfurt struggle to learn the language, navigate bureaucracy, or access job training programs. Without meaningful support systems, too many were left adrift, falling through the cracks into informal labor, unstable housing, or worse. For the most vulnerable, the transition wasn't just hard, it was brutal. Faced with discrimination, unemployment, and cultural isolation, some turned to underground economies. Others, unable to find stability, spiraled into addiction or petty crime. And when problems arose, the system was too slow, too overwhelmed, too fragmented to catch them. This wasn't a failure of compassion. It was a failure of coordination. Because when you invite people in, but don't fully include them, they don't become integrated. They become invisible. And in cities like Frankfurt, the invisible gather in places like Bahnhofsviertel, a neighborhood where everyone tries to disappear or pretends no one else exists. The result? A divided Frankfurt. Two cities stacked atop one another. One vibrant, global, teeming with opportunity. The other fractured, weary, hanging by a thread. And the line between them? Paper thin. Sometimes just a subway stop apart. This division isn't just about income or real estate. It's about belonging. It's about the teenager who's never seen a doctor because his mother has no health insurance. It's about the grandmother evicted from her rent-controlled apartment after 30 years. It's about the immigrant who speaks 5 languages but still can't land a job interview. It's about the addict who's been waiting 6 months for a detox bed that may never open. And it's about the average resident, walking to work every morning, passing open scenes of drug use and wondering, what happened to the city I once called home? Frankfurt doesn't need a miracle. It needs a reset. The solutions exist, but they can't be half measures. The city needs bold investment in affordable housing. Not just construction, but policies that protect renters, support low-income families, and stop displacement before it starts. It needs a rethinking of drug intervention, not just harm reduction, but fully funded, humane pathways to recovery that are accessible to all. And it needs a new approach to integration. One that sees immigrants not as statistics or quotas, but as individuals, with skills, dreams, and potential waiting to be unlocked. Above all, Frankfurt needs to remember its own story. A city that once rebuilt itself from ashes. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. The difference now? The destruction isn't coming from bombs, it's coming from neglect. And the question we must all ask is, will Frankfurt rebuild again? And this time, for everyone? Now let's widen the lens. Because when people think of Germany, they imagine order, prosperity, precision, sleek trains arriving on time, bustling markets, spotless cities driven by innovation and efficiency. But take a closer look, and that perfect postcard image starts to blur. Because beneath the shine, Germany is a country of many faces. And perhaps no two cities show this contrast more starkly than Frankfurt and Berlin. Let's start with Berlin, the capital. Known for its rebellious spirit and gritty charm, Berlin has always been a magnet for artists, immigrants, outsiders. It's rough around the edges, but alive, vibrant, colorful, full of contradictions. In Berlin, you could sip craft beer in a hidden bar 1 minute and stumble into an underground techno rave the next. It's chaotic, sure, but there's a rhythm. A kind of organized chaos that, somehow, works. Social problems? Of course Berlin has them. Homelessness is rising. Rents have soared by over 26% between 2014 and 2023. And the number of social housing units? Plummeting. from around 115,000 in 2016 to just over 93,000 in 2024. Projections show it could drop even further, to under 60,000 by 2028. It's a massive shortfall, especially when over 500,000 households in Berlin qualify for social housing. But here's the key difference. Berlin still feels like a city trying. Its drug policies are more balanced, blending prevention, education, and harm reduction instead of simply managing decay. Yes, there are open drug scenes, but they aren't sprawled across the city center. The police? Not perfect, but generally more proactive. Community groups work closely with local government. And maybe most importantly, there's still a sense that people matter here, even those struggling the most. Frankfurt, it has the money, the power, the global status. But Berlin, it has the fight. And maybe that's the real difference. Because when a city stops fighting for its most vulnerable, it doesn't just lose them. It starts losing its soul. So as we stand between these two cities, one striving, one unraveling, the question lingers. Which future will Germany choose? And who will it leave behind in the process? If this story opened your eyes, drop a comment below. Share your thoughts, your feelings, your questions. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden truths behind the headlines, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and join us for the next chapter. Because here at Secret Journeys, we're not just telling stories, we're shining a light on the ones no one else dares to tell. Berlin's nightlife isn't just entertainment. It's survival, it's therapy. At night, the city doesn't sleep, it transforms. People come alive in underground clubs, bustling food markets, chaotic flea bazaars, and bars that never close. You can feel the cultural kaleidoscope on every street corner. A Turkish falafel stand sits next to a Vietnamese noodle shop. African barbershops share the block with punk-themed bookstores. It's messy. It's unpredictable. But it's beautifully, undeniably human. Now, cut to Frankfurt. From above, Frankfurt looks like a corporate utopia. Its skyline gleams with glass and steel. Clean lines. Clean money. The European Central Bank stands tall. Multinational corporations tower overhead. Banks with vaults deeper than the subway tunnels beneath them. By numbers alone, Frankfurt ranks among the wealthiest cities, not just in Germany, but in all of Europe. But step outside those towers, and the contrast punches you in the face. A few blocks from those financial fortresses lies Bahnhofsviertel, Frankfurt's central station district. A parallel world unfolds. Here, drug users slump against graffiti-scarred walls. Prostitution happens openly. Crime hums like background noise. Unlike Berlin's nightlife, a chaotic but purposeful swirl, Frankfurt's after-dark scene feels tense, uneasy. Even the locals admit it, they avoid the area if they can. And it's not just paranoia. Statistically, Frankfurt records one of the highest crime rates among Germany's major cities. Drug use runs rampant. Even the city's once praised social services seem overwhelmed. Programs once considered forward-thinking, needle exchanges, open counseling centers, have become symbols of a system stretched to the breaking point. Police presence? It feels more like passive observation than intervention. Some residents call it theater policing. Arrests happen, but the same faces return to the same corners the next day. Then there's the deeper issue: how Frankfurt treats those outside its economic spotlight. Where Berlin allowed creative communities and immigrant enclaves to flourish, Frankfurt feels increasingly segregated. On one side, the ultra-rich dine at Michelin-starred restaurants overlooking the main river. Just a few streets away, the homeless pitch tents under railway bridges, surrounded by empty beer cans and discarded needles. This divide isn't just physical, it's philosophical. Who gets to be seen? Who gets to belong? Even everyday Germans are noticing. Interviews reveal many avoid Frankfurt entirely. It feels like a dark spot in a modern, civilized country, one said. Tourists echo the sentiment. We expected a European business capital. What we found felt more like a city unraveling. Meanwhile, Berlin, messy as it is, still feels alive. It still feels like Europe. That's the irony. Frankfurt, meticulously built to symbolize success, now represents neglect. Berlin, long criticized for its disarray, somehow holds itself together. One city polished its image so hard it lost touch with its cracks. The other embraced its flaws and built community within them. That's not to say Berlin is perfect. Far from it. Hate crimes against refugees and immigrants have surged in recent years. In 2024 alone, there were 77 reported attacks against asylum seekers and at least 8 violent incidents targeting refugee housing. Far-right ideologies are gaining ground in some neighborhoods. The pressure is real. The tension is rising. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Secret Journeys channel to explore the world and various exotic places for free. But even then, Berlin pushes back. Protests erupt louder. Civil groups grow stronger. Solidarity still breathes in the margins. Frankfurt, the silence says it all. The contrast is sharp, sobering, and impossible to ignore. These aren't just two cities on a map. They're two visions of what Germany can be. This isn't just urban planning or economic policy. It's a question of values. Germany is a land of precision, history, beauty, and contradictions. In cities like Berlin and Frankfurt, we witness two faces of the same nation. One fighting to preserve culture and inclusion. The other quietly crumbling under inequality and abandonment. This isn't just a story about skylines or GDP. It's a story about people. About how cities can lift us up or leave us behind. As travelers, we're taught to chase monuments, postcard views, and Instagram moments. But sometimes, the real stories live in the places no one advertises. In the alleyways. In the silences. In the glances that go unnoticed. If this journey made you see cities differently, if it made you wonder what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore, drop a comment below. We'd love to hear your perspective. And if you want to keep exploring raw, honest stories like this, hit like and subscribe to Secret Journeys. Because the world isn't always polished. And sometimes, the most powerful journeys take us deeper than we ever expected.